Guardians, Iron Banner has returned for the second time this season, and this season we got two quote-unquote new Iron Banner weapons, the reprised Riiswalker and a brand new auto rifle. But the question is it worth the absolute slog that is Iron Banner to get these weapons? Let's talk about it. Starting with Riiswalker, I did get the roll that everyone was talking about with Slick Draw opening shot, and it's fine. That's really all that I have to say about it. On most shotguns, there's usually a noticeable difference between one with opening shot and one without opening shot. I've used Matador with and without opening shot, same with Imperial Decree, Wastelander, Swordbreaker, Fractithist, and on all of them, the opening shot rolls feel noticeably better. But on Riiswalker, I didn't actually notice much of a difference between my Slick Draw opening shot roll and my old Quick Draw Iron Reach roll. And all that I can figure is that the targeting loss from Slick Draw is offsetting the aim assist boost from opening shot, which is what I kind of predicted would happen, but it was still extremely disappointing regardless. If Riiswalker still had Quick Draw, that would be one thing, but Slick Draw is a massive downgrade. I really wish Bungie would stop trying to sell this perk to us because it's still an awful perk and it is inferior to Quick Draw. As I see it, for Slick Draw to even be worth considering, it would have to give like old Forsaken era pre-nerf Quick Draw benefits, and it just doesn't. In fact, take a quick look at this footage here. I got a Retrofuturist that rolled with both Slick Draw and Quick Draw, so I decided to see if there was any real difference between them. Do you see much of a difference? Probably not. I didn't either. And that's because per D2 Foundry, there's literally no difference between the ready speeds of Quick Draw and Slick Draw. The only real advantage Slick Draw has is that it does slightly boost your stow speed by 0.11 seconds, which isn't particularly noticeable, and your ADS by 0.08 seconds. And that is absolutely not worth trading targeting for. So if you want a good lightweight shotgun in the kinetic slot, go with Swordbreaker. They both have opening shot, and Swordbreaker has far better handling options in the form of Threat Detector and Elemental Capacitor on an Arc class. Plus, Swordbreaker is craftable. You don't have to play the awfulness that is Iron Banner to get it, and if you run Master Crota, you can put Adept mods on it, and it can get enhanced perks. Unfortunately, that's all there really is to say on Riiswalker, another unsurprising L for Iron Banner from Bungie. Thanks guys. Moving on to the far more interesting weapon, Lethal Abundance is a strand, high-impact auto rifle, and it's actually really surprised me. This weapon feels amazing. It shoots like a dream, and it has an awesome perk pool. Now don't get me wrong, it's still an auto rifle. It will lose to hand cannons and pulse rifles more often than not, but it is still a very fun weapon, and for sure worth trying out and maybe trying to get a good roll on. Now you can see the perk pool on your screen, and there are some great combos here. The base range is already very high at 80, so I don't really see a need to try and push that out much further. So for your barrels, I would be looking for either fluted barrel for handling and stability, or chambered compensator for stability and recoil direction. For your mag, obviously ricochet rounds, not much else to pick from here, you want the range and stability. In the third column, starting with PvP rolls here, Keep Away is never a bad option, a passive plus 10 to your range, plus 20 to your reload speed, and a boost to your weapon accuracy as long as no enemies are close to you. Dynamic Sway is also a very good choice. Sustained fire increases your stability and recoil. Elemental Capacitor is also a great choice if you're on a Void or Arc subclass for a boost to stability or handling. Then lastly, Slice, where casting your class ability will sever targets that you shoot, reducing their damage slightly in PvP. Very helpful against weapons like bows, 120 hand cannons, pulse rifles, or target lock submachine guns. In the fourth column, there's Target Lock, which isn't bad here, but don't think it's going to perform like a Target Lock SMG because it just won't. The rate of fire is too slow and the mag is too large, but it can be helpful in certain situations. If someone is straightlining you or you catch them out in the open, yes, Target Lock is going to still tear them apart. Next up, Tap the Trigger, which gives you a short period of higher stability when you first squeeze the trigger. Then Onslaught, which will drastically increase your rate of fire after a kill. As far as combos go, the main ones I'm hunting would be Dynamic Sway with Tap the Trigger or Keep Away with Tap the Trigger. Dynamic Sway has perfect synergy with Tap the Trigger. Tap will give you stability at the start of an engagement, Dynamic Sway will give you stability towards the end of one. Keep Away for obvious reasons, mainly for the boost to accuracy and range, and Tap the Trigger for the same reasons as before. I will say that Onslaught is very fun, but it doesn't last for very long, only around 4.5 seconds, which means that you have to push into another gunfight very quickly, which can be a real issue in a sandbox where people play very passively and tend to hold hands a ton. But if you get a good roll with Onslaught, I'd probably still keep it just because it is a lot of fun. It's just not always very effective. The main roll I'm looking for would be Fluted Barrel or Arrowhead Break, Ricochet Rounds, Dynamic Sway, and Tap the Trigger with a Stability Masterwork. That roll would basically turn this gun into a laser beam, which is very important because these high-impact auto rifles do tend to bounce around quite a bit. Now again, just to be perfectly clear, it's the best high-impact auto rifle, which means it's the best of the worst archetype of auto rifles for PvP, and auto rifles as a whole are already mid-tier at best for PvP. You are going to lose to hand cannons and pulse rifles at mid-range if you aren't very, very careful. You can peek shoot with cannons and pulses very effectively. You really can't with an auto rifle. Pulses and cannons also generally flinch you much more effectively as well. And don't even think about taking this into close quarters because really any submachine gun is just going to eat you alive. But this weapon is still fun enough that I'd say it's worth keeping around for when you just want to have a good time. And who knows, maybe at some point we'll see an auto rifle meta again. If that ever happens, this weapon would actually be in a very, very strong place. Really, the biggest benefit to this thing is just how it feels. It's very controllable for a high impact, the sights are very open and clean, the weapon model is very slim and unobstructive, it just feels fantastic. And it's also just kind of nice to see that old Ether Doctor weapon model come back just for a little blast of nostalgia. Now, as far as PvE goes, there are some decent options. You have Discord in the third column, which combined with Onslaught would make this an ad-clearing monster. You have Hatchling in the fourth column for strand builds, and of course Slice is an obvious PvE choice. The damage debuff to enemies in PvE is extremely noticeable. You do also have Collective Action in the fourth column, which is still a very good damage perk in PvE and extremely easy to proc and keep procced in PvE. Really what I think I would be looking for though would be Discord and Onslaught for ad clear purposes. So while Riiswalker was massively disappointing, the auto rifle was actually a very pleasant surprise. So are either of these really worth grinding Iron Banner for? Probably not. The thing about Iron Banner is that it sucks. Most of the modes are awful. Fortress would be fine if Well and Bubble didn't exist, but unfortunately they do. Skill-based matchmaking makes this mode a slog. Fireteam-based matchmaking means if you're solo, you'll constantly be playing against stacks because people stack like crazy in Banner. So the short answer is, yeah, probably not. Riiswalker is absolutely not worth going for, not when other, better lightweight shotguns exist. Lethal Abundance is fun, but if you're just concerned with being as effective as possible, then it also isn't really worth going for, at least for the time being. If Bungie had brought back Steady Hand or even Kremel's Dagger, or had given us something really worth going for like a precision shotgun with quick draw opening shot, maybe then. But this is one of the big issues with Iron Banner. It's awful to play, and there's no particularly noteworthy loot to grind for. So no, unless one of these weapons just really resonates with you, there's no reason to play Iron Banner for the foreseeable future. Keep in mind too, we're probably not going to see a weapon pool shakeup until, I guess, the episode start, which is still like 4 months away. So yeah, really no reason to play. Which also isn't great given that, like, on weeks such as this one, your only choices for 6v6 are either Iron Banner or a awful party mode, which is extremely unfortunate. Bungie, please, for the love of God, reverse the playlist changes that were made this season. That's all for me today, Guardians. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor and let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and hit that subscribe button with the bell icon. Friendly reminder, I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I am active on both of them. Links to those in the description. For now, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.